Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richie of the MHRT Network. Over to my right or left, depending on which way you're facing your screen, is Captain Jack Rackham of Captain Jack. You can find him on YouTube and all over the place. He is everywhere. And all you got to do is wait for the season. You'll see him on the TV screens too, because he always makes the live broadcast. That's just stock standard.
Or just any NFL.
Yeah,
NFL event.
NFL, he's there. And then of course, directly below here is the real Alex Givens. You can find his articles and other postings on Arrowhead Addict. And Coach Defense will be joining us shortly. Don't worry, he is perfectly fine. Sadly, traffic is a thing, and as a result of that, he will be joining us shortly. Speak of the
Boom.
Bam! Right on cue.
Into existence.
Right on cue. We have Coach Defense of the Lockdown Defense podcast down in diagonal there. Coach, how are you?
I am good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Doing good.
Oh, Cap got a different little setup there going there. What you doing over there, bud?
Well, because you weren't here for
Wait,
pregame.
hear the audio first.
Oh,
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay, first
Listen to that.
off, for all those that say that there's a problem with my speakers or my microphone, I give you the one finger double dual salute. Okay. It's not my microphone. It's the studio that we are in. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't have any problems when I do my show with anybody saying, oh, there's a buzzing in your microphone. Oh, no. Au contraire. But to get back to your question, Coach, this is my backup system because my, standalone computer, I'll just say crap the bed. That's an easier way to say it. So I had to bring it into the Geek Squad, and it should be back tomorrow. But being that I'm always prepared, I have my laptop.
All right.
I have my backup over here. I have a second backup over here. I got a laptop right below the laptop. So I got enough computers. I got enough extra microphones. I got a really good, as you can see, Rode microphone. Rode, baby.
Okay.
And, it's great sound. And like I said, great sound. And I'm using a regular camera, but for all those that are bitching about the buzzing, it's not my microphone. It's the studio. It's the studio.
Regardless, I'm with the new digs.
I have my beer ready.
I'm with the new digs. What is that, Rich?
Okay. Well, give it some time.
Yeah. It doesn't look like no beer.
Right.
This is from a local brewery up a little bit north and west of where I am. It is a craft brewery. They do ciders and beer. Some of the best ciders, because that whole area is where they have where most of Ontario's apples come from, and you have the Canadian whiskey. This is an Irish stout in a growler. I don't know how big the growler is, but it's freaking huge. It's great. It'll fill at least 2.5 of my boots. I will likely finish this before the end of the show.
Well, all right then.
Oh! For you, Richie. And for all of the people that are here, because I promised I would, I'm going to crack open your Canadian beer.
That's a fantastic beer. It is so good.
And for all the people here, because I'm not a big drinker anyway, so I'm going to crack it open. But give me a minute. I'm going to turn my thing off so nobody can watch my butt as it leaves the room. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
save that for OnlyFans.
Thank you for that.
I'm gonna stop the camera. I'll be
That's
back
the
in a little
Jack
bit.
After hours.
There you go.
I'll be back.
You can find the Captain Jack's butt on Captain Jack Walk the Plank on OnlyFans.
OnlyFans, baby. OnlyFans. I'll be right back.
So, guys, we're going to have an interesting show for you today. DZ, and yes, I'm pronouncing it the proper way, means English. We have a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to go ahead and talk about a boot. Right? I'll pronounce it overly Canadian. A boot. UDFAs from each of our team. We didn't really delve into those details last show as we were trying to get into all of the different things. And we're also going to discuss our schedules in terms of what to expect and what's going to happen. Just before we go any further, I did want to give a shout out. Violator, thank you for joining us, my man. Violator is on the NFL Nation live show with Captain Jack, which will come on directly after us here. And Violator's been a great Raiders fan in the Pro Football Hall of Fans, and also just an all-around, just generally nice guy. And he has tolerated me as a Broncos fan, and I have to say thank you for that.
Emphasis on tolerate.
There's an underline under the word tolerated, which is
there
wonderful.
You go. There you go.
So, although I think as a Broncos fan, I'm a bit unique in the fact that I'm not a homer. I will absolutely call out my team when they make mistakes. So I think that also helps endure me to opposing fans of other teams, where I'm not just sitting here saying we're going to win just because. So, Alex, I want to throw over to you. What do you think in terms of your team's UDFAs? I think it's important to kind of provide fans of the show with a few different kind of avenues here. One, who do you think is most likely to make the roster out of them? And I think that's, what we all want to try to predict and know. And who do you think is going to surprise people the most? Now, maybe it's the same players, so maybe you're going to kind of say, here's, A and B are one and the same. But who do you think of your UDFAs are going to, either A, make the roster, B, surprise people? And who are you actually excited about that you signed as a UDFA?
Yeah. So, going into it, the Chiefs, especially once Veach has been GM, have been pretty aggressive players in the UDFA realm. Almost immediately after the last pick of the 7th round announced they have signed someone. I think they signed 14, going into the rookie mini camps and that whole start of the process. And they actually gave out let me find the figure. So they gave out $1.12 million in guaranteed money in UDFA, signings. So I mean, obviously brought in a lot of guys that they liked in their, evaluation draft process, and guys that maybe they felt like fell through the cracks. There's always seems to be one going into the preseason that kind of has a lot of Chiefs hype. But of those 14 they brought in, they announced I think yesterday they signed 12 of them to go into this preseason realm. Bigger emphasis on defense, I think, more defensive back, linebacker, secondary players, and adding depth with that. But the one that I'm really that seems to kind of be getting all the praise or potential to kind of earn his keep, or there we go. Initial review is it's a really good beer, and you're wonderful.
Oh, how's it going?
Some Canadians be putting in there.
It's good. Again, I'm not a big beer drinker, but when you take that first swig, whoa! Here's looking up your old address, bitch. There you go.
Oh man, that's good.
Good stuff.
Listen, if Canadian beer makes you do that, I don't want any.
That's some strong stuff.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Alex. I apologize. You were talking, but you.
Oh no! I saw a prime opportunity to get a seen beer reviews, so football never leaves.
Oh.
Man.
Yeah. The hell with football beer review. Okay?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
this is now a beer review show.
Good,
There you
good
go.
stuff. Good stuff.
Oh,
I
man.
will say good stuff.
Man, that is too funny.
And actually,
I
in
just
all
saw his
fairness,
eyes light up like a kid on Christmas morning.
Right, because I was actually looking at you, and then
Like-
you said you stopped. And I was like, I looked at Cap. I was like, oh.
in all fairness, that might actually be the first time that beer has made it across the border. It's a very niche beer. It's called Bose, and it's a beer called Lug Tread, which is their signature beer. But I'm not gonna lie, it is one of the best beers that you can get in Southern Ontario, where you can find it. It is that good. It is certainly a premium beer, and it's well worth it.
Yeah, good stuff.
Now you're on a watch list.
Captain gives you, wait. I want to make sure you get 2 thumbs up. You guys
For your
said
legal
different camera
contraband.
angle.
There you go.
Different camera angle. So there you go. Double thumbs, man.
He's going to wonder why that
good.
cavity search is extra invasive next time he crosses the border.
Bring another one down if you get down here again, Richie. Maybe I'll have the maple stuff done by then. I'm saving that for the season now.
Oh, that maple thing is dangerous. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-mm.
That's dangerous. And if I see you guys, if I see any of the other 2 guys, I will bring the maple whiskey with me for you as well. It is one of the Canada's best whiskeys that you can get here. It's real maple syrup, French name, Châtelage, but it is a maple whiskey. It is freaking good.
What you gonna say, West? Sir Tilagi.
I think that needs to be an episode. We just need Cap to try different
Yeah, just taste
different
test different stuff on the
alcohols and
show.
boozes,
Yeah,
and then he
Just
just
taste
tries
test,
to read
yeah.
them.
We all
as
sent him
he
a bottle of
progressively
one.
gets drunker.
Yeah, everybody sent him one bottle of something. He just taste tested the whole show.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know about this Szechuan shit, but it says Tortellagi right here.
I bet that pairs nicely with a good French toast.
Hey, French toast. That's a freaking French toast.
I tried to think of something mapley. And
There you go.
First thing.
There you go. Apologies, Alex. I didn't mean to rain on your parade.
Putin and maple whiskey. Yeah, it's actually that's not bad. I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, Alex, back over to you.
As you were.
We were talking about sports. What were we doing?
Yeah.
Carry on,
We're
bastard.
talking about practice, not a game.
We're talking about playoffs.
Playoffs,
Not a game.
not a game.
Not a game.
Practice.
We talk about practice. We talk about practice.
So yeah, back to what I was saying. What was
You
I
were
saying?
heavy on defense. Heavy on defense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So of the 12 or I think 14 that they signed, 5 were offensive players, 9 were defense. So I mean, continued the theme to add youth and depth to the defensive side of the ball. But I'd say that the guy that's gotten the most praise thus far, and kind of labeled as the guy to really pressure maybe some reserve or older veteran players for a spot is his name's Truman Jones, an edge rusher out of Harvard. So you know, Harvard. You know, an Ivy League guy. So you don't know exactly, you know, how he meshes up with better caliber talent. But you know, got almost $300,000 in guaranteed money and was a top 30 visit, you know, during the process of pre-draft process for the Chiefs. So obviously a guy that was on their radar from the go. And I think, you know, kind of fell into their lap by not getting drafted and getting into the undrafted free agent process. So that's certainly one of the ones that's getting a lot of praise. And there's actually, I think, 3 guys that were in their, you know, top 30 team players that they ended up signing as undrafted free agents. You know, to be honest, I don't know a lot of the backstory to any of them. You know, why they're undrafted, you know, whether that be from a small school or some sort of injury concern or something like that. But I wouldn't be shocked if some of these players fell because of some sort of off the field concern or medical concern, and Veach kind of saw the opportunity. That's kind of his MO. Trey Smith, starting right guard, he was a 7th round pick that very well should not have been one, but had medical concerns and fell. I imagine some of these guys, especially ones that were in the top 30 visit process, kind of had something come out as the pre-draft, narratives played out and fell. But, those are kind of the Truman Jones from Harvard, and I'm trying to find this other guy's name. But a defensive back out of, where's he from? Where was he from here?
What? The lawyer doesn't know right off the top of his head?
I don't. I mean, the UDFA guys is just, you don't know this early in the process if they're even going to be around. So,
my
from my own friends'
is to
experience,
start
I know
drinking
how
heavily.
the rookie mini camps go, and you don't even realize you're there before you're off the team. So, but there was a few guys essentially that they gave a lot of money to, and in terms of guaranteed money. The last one being the Tulsa running back, Deneric Prince, who I think got almost $230,000 in guaranteed. So I think obviously they see something promising in him, and I think could add youthful depth. I think something to watch with a player like Prince, and especially a running back, is if they have a UDFA or someone else come in and kind of earn his keep to get some carries, to see what they do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because right now it's kind of been the tone is they're not moving on from him, and he's going to play a part. But I imagine that changes if some undrafted or late signing comes in and earns some touches. So be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, in terms of the UDFAs and the 14 they kept, I'd say Truman Jones is probably the most praised one, and probably the one with the best opportunity to earn a spot and maybe even get on the field. One being an Ivy League player that probably didn't get scouted a whole lot, so they could potentially, have lightning in a bottle, or a guy that has, pro caliber traits that just didn't get the exposure he needed. And I think that they feel that way with the amount of money they gave him, and the fact that he's, going into the preseason. So be interesting to see what happens with that. And then on top of that, last year's big UDFA, Justin Ross, kind of had a medical redshirt year. But I mean, obviously a high caliber wide receiver from Clemson. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with him in year 2. I mean, they kept him around, they kept him on the roster to not lose him to someone else signing him. So, and Chiefs Twitter is full steam ahead on the Justin Ross hype train right now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him as well. But yeah, that's kind of the rundown on the UDFAs for KC as it currently is situated.
That's interesting. So Coach, over to you, and we'll try to cover off the Chargers UDFAs as well. Same general questions to you. Who are you most excited about? Who do you think is most likely to make the roster? And, just who do you think is going to be overall perhaps the most exciting? And sadly, some of the UDFAs, even though they look exciting, they don't make the roster. And so what are your thoughts on that in general?
Well, overall, I feel like that from a positional standpoint, we're pretty solid from a starting and depth perspective. We only run into issues in the last couple of years when it came down to injury. Losing multiple persons in one position group, really damaged us in the season last year. Wide receiver, namely, defensive line was another one. So just not having just a plethora of guys just you can pull in when you lose 2, 3, and 4 guys at one position. So I think that was a big issue for us in the season. But But on paper right now, the way things look, I think we're pretty stacked. I want to say stacked, but I think we're pretty. This is probably the deepest team we've had in several years. When it comes down to not only starters but reserved or role players. When it comes down to what they did in the draft in the last couple of years, as well as the free agency market. So I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if there's a lot of room for anybody to make the roster in totality. But what I am looking for is some guys to kind of break through and either challenge and motivate and push the starters, and or potentially take a guy's job if they're loafing. I think that it's a couple of guys that I have in mind that really stood out to me, because I'm actually very shocked they didn't get drafted. And when it comes down to who they got in the UDFA pool, the first guy that came to my mind is somewhat of a household name from Ohio State, is Cameron Brown. I'm very shocked that Cameron Brown didn't get drafted. I mean, I've seen some corners go in the draft. We're talking a 6 foot tall, 197-pound corner. Is a prototype outside boundary corner. So I'm very shocked with that talented secondary in Ohio State that he didn't get drafted at all. So when we got him in the UDFA pool, I was like, wow. I got a feeling he might get a good chance to make it. I'm telling
you, man, people are not high on Ohio State corners anymore. I mean, you got that.
What are Ohio State corners and quarterbacks, right? Quarterbacks and corners? Is that what they hate you? Yeah.
I mean, it seems like because there was that, like, Jeff Okudah was taken, 3rd overall by the Lions 2-3 years ago. They just traded his ass. And then there was
I got a couple of names for you. How about Damon Arnett?
Yeah, I was gonna go there, but he just got charged with something else.
I know.
And then there's the other guy. Was it that had issues with women and other stuff before the draft? And I thankfully have brain farted and forgotten his name.
Okay, was he a former Raider?
Yeah, well, no, he's a former Ohio State cornerback that they drafted in the 1st round or 2nd round. He was like their first pick.
Yeah,
cornerback from Ohio State. Forgot his name. Yeah, forgot his name, but he was a waste of a pick. Just like Arnett was a waste of a pick. So it's not surprising that Ohio State.
But there was because I'm trying to think of the guy last year. Was it Sean Wade? Was supposed to be like a 1st round pick, or was going into the year projected 1st, early 2nd, and I don't think he got drafted either. And I mean, obviously, maybe some of the play during the year, plays a part of that. But I feel like certain big programs, once a few guys don't hit and get drafted early, it's like you see that
just off the whole thing,
get, decredit. Yeah, I mean, because it's just such a shot in the dark thing, like the whole draft process. So they got to find some way to justify it.
I guess, but again, I don't mean from a tape perspective, from a production perspective, I didn't get it. And I saw some guys that had that were less athletic, and they didn't test as well, and they still got drafted above him. So I don't know what the issue is. At least from a talent and on the field perspective, I didn't get it. But I'm not mad. I mean, again, I think he has a really good shot at making a roster.
Uh-oh. I think Coach got into the carbonite.
We're getting hit.
Oh, we getting hit?
Sheffield. Denzel Ward?
Yeah, you were Han Solo for a minute there, Coach. I
was frozen in carbonite. Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, again, I was just talking about Cameron Brown. I didn't understand why he didn't get drafted. Like I said, tall, rangy corner. 6 foot tall, 197 pounds. Like I said, he had the body type, the height, and the speed to play outside corner. With pretty much anybody's scheme. So that part I really didn't understand. However, but again, I'm not upset because again, I think he has a really good shot at making the roster because of his talent level, his production on the field. So I think my eyes on him first and foremost to make the roster as being one of the DBs to come in, especially with J.C. Jackson's status early on in the season being uncertain. I think they'd be wise if he has a good camp to keep him around because of that for sure. That on the top of the fact that you're trying to develop 2 other corners that you drafted last year. So I think that particular aspect of it will give Cameron Brown a really good inside track to make the roster. The other guy I got my eye on is a guy by the name of Gerard Clark. he's out of Coastal Carolina. And I think the simple fact that he was at Coastal Carolina might be why he didn't get drafted, because that's the only reason I can get why he didn't get drafted. He is, you know, when you look up run stopper in a dictionary, that guy's picture looking right at you like, hi. This is what I do.
Big
I stop
dude.
and run. Big dude. I mean, it just takes up space. You know, very physical, very good two-gap run stopping D lineman. And that's exactly what the Chargers need.
Oh.
I am very concerned, you know, just overall based upon what we had from last year to this year. You know, avoid of, you know, Austin Johnson and Otito Ojinobi taking a step this year of our run defense in the interior. I think our edge is fine. But
I got Joe Shinobi right here.
see, so I'm very
Is your edge
concerned
really
about our
fine?
interior D line. So if Gerard Clark can come in and either push the guys that we have incumbent, or, you know, again, if they're guys that aren't necessarily pulling their weight, he can come in and take that roster spot. I'm fine with that too, because I think he can be a good fit. I'm just looking at him and Scott Matlock, the guy we actually drafted in the 6th round, to come in and make some noise, because everybody been talking, you know, cash trash about how good Scott Matlock could be, because he's a dual threat guy. He's a really good interior D lineman. He has a nice streak, and he plays offensive line on a goal line, and tight end, fullback, you know, whatever your flavor is. He was a former tight end in high school. So, you know, I'm looking at those two guys for sure that could be, you know, potentially make the roster outright, or definitely put into the practice squad. And then the problem is, you know, when you look at these guys pretty early, you know, if they shine all camp and just so happen to be put on the practice squad, you got a good chance of them getting stolen. You know, so guys that, you know, you kind of wonder, like, okay, the guy didn't make the roster, he make your 53, but he's on your practice squad, but, you know, is he good enough to be on somebody else's roster and you're just holding them to develop them, or is he really need work? You know, you kind of want to figure that part out when the guys, you know, are on the practice squad. Are they just on the practice squad because you're just too top heavy, or are they there for developmental purposes? They need time to develop, and they maybe need a year or two to kind of hit. But overall, those are my two main guys. I've heard some rumblings about Pokey Wilson. You know what that is, Cap, from Florida State, wide receiver?
I know, I recognize the name when you said Pokey.
Yeah, so they've been talking about him, and the reason why they was very curious why he didn't get drafted as well. You know, the limited highlights and tapes I saw of him, he looked pretty good for a Florida State team that wasn't, you know, really a contending team at this particular go around, but he did show some flashes of production. So, you know, that could be a receiver you can kind of hang around and develop and bring in if, you know, somebody doesn't pan out, if Jalen Guyton's knee isn't up to speed, keep him around, things of that nature. So, you know, just for nothing else, you know, for depth purposes, because we see how quickly things can change from a wide receiver perspective when your two top dogs go out, and then you're scrambling for guys that could fill in and be productive, right? Why you go out and get Quiston Johnson? Why you bring Darius Davis in, you know, for punt return and slot duties, things of that nature. So, yeah, I would say that he has a shot. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, again, it's not guys that I'm really truly high on. Those are probably my top three, and maybe an outside chance. And actually, DZ hit me to this guy earlier in his lineage. Tywan Mullen is I think he's a kin to Trayvon Mullen,
from Indiana.
Yeah, so he has some NFL lineage. So at least from that perspective, has the inside track on knowing
another dude
it takes to be a pro.
Get drafted.
Yeah, so he knows what it takes to be a pro, if nothing else. So I will give him an outside chance as well. But again, if I had to choose between him and Cameron Brown, what I see from Cameron Brown, I would go Cameron Brown first if I had to pick one corner out the group. So yeah, got a few edges, a couple of old linemen, some running backs, tight ends, some linebackers, all in the mix. We picked up a lot of UDFAs, a whole lot. So again, if I had to, you know, gamble on it, I would say that the two guys that I'm high on in Cameron and Gerard would be my 1 and 2. Outside chance of Pokey being 3, maybe Taiwan 4, and everybody else, you know, unless you have an injury, unfortunate injury, something like that, you might be on a practice spot if you make it out right altogether.
So you made a comment earlier that you thought that your edge was in good standing. Is it really?
Said it again.
You made a comment earlier about your edge room, like your outside. Basically, your outside linebackers or your pass rush, effectively your DNs that can play the outside and your outside linebackers that can play the outside as an edge rusher.
Right.
But I mean, last year, your two primary edge rushers were very rarely on the field together, if at all. You have a history of injuries with both of your primary edge rushers. So, I mean, I even know from our previous shows, you have made comments, as have the Bolt Bros, who have been, on and off our show from time to time, just about their concerns with the health of your edge rushers. So is your edge pass rush really in good standing? Like, you made a comment just kind of brushing it off, but I'm not convinced that your guys can actually stay on the field for even close to a full season.
Well, that's why you spent a second round pick on Tuli Tuilapo. I hope I said his last name right. But the guy from Tuli Tua. Yeah, him. That's why you spent a second round pick on him, because he's going to not only be your rotational guy, but he's going to be your edge rusher guy going forward once we likely move off Khalil Mack after this year, based upon contracts. So so that's why you do that, and I think he'll be the primary guy. Chris Rump in his third year will be the next guy up. So you have four edge rushers in camp. They're going to most likely make the roster. So I'm comfortable with 4, and 3 for sure. I know it can be productive. So I think that that I'm comfortable with that number at the moment. But again, you can't predict injuries. You can't predict whether or not somebody's going to make it a whole season, half a season, whatever the case may be. But if we only lost 1, I would feel comfortable with your main guys, either Mack or Bosa and Tuli, being the guy to be thrust into duty full time. So I'm comfortable with that. But again, if you lose 2 to 3 edge rushers, then that's just bad luck. Let's be honest with you. Nobody can account for that. So I think that if we have 4 solid guys that either one been in the system for a long time, or 2, been highly productive in college, or 3 Pro Bowlers, I'm comfortable with it.
All right. Interesting. So I'll jump in on the Broncos and get you guys some insight there. The Broncos have been almost oddly active in the UDFA college agent side of things. Certainly this is a difference from what the Broncos are used to in terms of how we've approached things. So in previous, we've typically just kind of gone out to try to really target guys, bring them in, see how everyone works, and then kind of go from there. There seems to be more of a proactive approach in the back end of the roster this year with Sean Payton. We have an international player that we've signed to come in who doesn't actually count towards the 90-man roster. And if you think I'm pronouncing that last name, you have another thing coming. And his first name is Haggai or Haggy. I don't know how the back portion of the first name goes.
And we lost Richard again.
I was about to ask if it was really bad or if
it was getting there. I was hoping he was gonna make it through, but it was getting there. It wasn't looking good. So hopefully he can get the internet hamster back on the wheel and get back online here shortly. But Cap, I guess we got to forward it over to you since we lost Richie midstream while he was breaking down his UDFAs. So
he's like, wait, I'll go.
Okay.
Go through a tunnel.
Now that I'm out of carbonite, okay, and I appreciate getting a chance for me to actually pull this up. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go right from, because Richie was talking about his foreign export or import, I should say. The Raiders also did that as well. A kid from Nigeria, again, who does not count against the 90. He's a defensive lineman, 6'4", 252. My guy's name is a little bit easier to pronounce. It's David Agoha. And I might not be. I don't think that I screwed up his name that bad, but it's David Agoha. So that's our Nigerian nightmare. Yes, I said that deliberately. Yeah,
you did say that. You did.
Yeah, but so hopefully we'll get Richie Richey back. But again, that's the extra UDFA that we have, and in that line of thinking, I'm going to go over a guy that I really think is going to make the team and might even start. And that's McClendon Curtis, the 6'6", 325 guard / tackle, but definitely projected as a guard out of Chattanooga. He played guard for, I think, 3 of the 4 years, and then he threw him over to tackle last year. So he's more apt to go right back into playing guard. And the reason why I say that is because if you guys know the Raiders interior, Bars was picked up last year, got cut, then got signed to the practice squad. And this is the guy that played for the Bears for many years. And by the end of the year was starting for the Raiders. And I'm sorry, Alex, but you suck. Oh, I'm sorry. That's also Alex Bars, by the way.
Yeah. I was like, damn, dude.
I was like, right. I
don't even
just
say
catching strays out here.
Yeah. I was going to say, hey, that's a 2-for-1 I
like that,
Alex. So, I figured I'd go for it.
I'm going to go get my gun.
Yeah, Alex Bars was the guard I was talking about. But, yeah, I mean, a very low bar to go to replace him. See what I did there? I know it's bad, but I had to go there anyway. But I really think that this kid, if he shows an inkling of ability, is going to be plugged right in at guard, okay? And because, again, you had Parham play guard last year, and I really still right now think that he's going to be moved over to center more quickly than not, because Parham plays well. In fact, they did a video breakdown, and almost every time that he was uncovered, he just wrecked havoc in his blocking scheme. So granted, as a center, he might not be covered as much, but Parham played so well in his capacity. And remember, he was our first pick in the 3rd round because the first 2 picks went to Devontae Adams. We'll talk about him later on as well. But I really think that the kid, and what was his name again, from UT Chattanooga, McClendon Curtis, I have a feeling that he's not only going to make the roster, but he has a chance to actually start.
Nice.
Let's go.
So, and there's the other guy that we picked up who is also a tree. Is Dalton Wagner, 6'8", 320 out of Arkansas. I'm hoping that he shows ability because, again, you can't teach size in the NFL. And a 6'8", 320 tackle, he just needs to work on his footwork. That's one of the reasons why he wasn't drafted. But you can get somebody to get the technique there with him. I mean, that's just a guy that just is itching to definitely make your roster, maybe start out on the practice squad. But you know what? I don't want to lose a guy that has the ability to make it on the team, because we had, and I say we because I say Raiders with the royal we had the guy that was going to be our center for years, guy by the name of Morrissey that played out of Pitt a couple years ago, had him on our roster, put him on our practice squad, and gosh dang it, I'm not going to go all the way there. Gosh dang it, the Texans went and removed him, and he's playing for the Texans right now. So kind of been that spot for the Raiders, as well as right tackle, because that's an obvious one. That's been kind of an area of need for a while. But I think that the Raiders need to figure out probably sooner moving Parham over to guard. Maybe James will move over to guard, and then because I like that, because James is bigger and I think would be better off suited as a guard, or maybe we just flip-flop him. But that's just me. I'm not a coach or anything. But going back to the free agents that we have for UDFAs, we did pick up some another 2 rush ends in, let's see here, Brock Martin out of Oklahoma State and Adam Plant out of UNLV. And of those 2, I really think that Plant has a better opportunity to make the roster. 6'5", 263 out of UNLV. Plus, he's local homeboy. But he also, considering that the Raiders' 4th rush end or edge is Malcolm Kuntz, that was a good prospect out of Buffalo from a couple years ago, but basically has wasted even a roster spot. I mean, you'd have to put him on a milk carton as well. We thought that maybe he would be breaking out last year, but he didn't do anything, Malcolm Coots. So I really think that Plant at defensive end has size and speed, and he's going to get that opportunity, especially with the fact that Wilson, our first-round pick, is still going to be they're going to be taking him light on him with his plantar fasciitis issue. So he's probably not going to be rushed into that spot immediately. So keep an eye out for Adam Plant at defensive end. Now, again, the other guy was George Charles, another edge rusher out of Boise State. So there was, like I said, three edges that we picked up in UDFA. I think Martin has the best opportunity of them all. We did pick up a linebacker as well, kid out of NC State, Drake Thomas. Depending upon the linebacker room, because Masterson as well as Butler, those were two players last year that were UDFAs that made the final roster, and Masterson ended up playing a lot of games last year. Kid that has a lot of ability, but again, he's only 1 year in, so maybe if Thomas can shine again, he's a little undersized at 5'11" and 223, but I think that there's a room for maybe one linebacker to stick, and if he shows anything on special teams, he might make it as well. I would say that there's another safety, Jaden Grant out of Oregon State. And I would be saying I don't know anything really about him. Azizi Hearn out of UCLA is a 6'1", 204 corner. So, again, he has the size. I don't know whether he has the speed or not, but, again, he has that nice size in a corner. So maybe he would stick. Schenker, the kid out of Auburn at tight end. I did see him play. He actually played decently at Auburn, but we got a lot of tight ends. I mean, we obviously got Mayer that we drafted. Then we got the Triple H with Horsted, Howard, and Hooper. So we'll see if there's going to be if one of those, if that other kid knocks off one of the it'd have to be a vet on the roster. So we'll see. He might be a practice squad guy for a bit. But again, I said this before on the program, I like the fact that Ziegler and McDaniel were getting good cogs for the machine. They are building the roster with capable personnel, multi-talented, multifaceted, so that, when one guy goes out, another guy can come in. And I like the fact that they've done well. They didn't overreach for anybody in the draft, and they picked up some, like I said, the kid out of UT Chattanooga at guard, it was surprising that he didn't get drafted. So I have a feeling that he might be that guard that hits the roster and keeps on running. So we'll see.
Yeah, they had didn't the Patriots take a guard from Chattanooga like second round last year?
I think so. Yeah, that was
might have been a guy McDaniels noticed in film and just kind of watched him.
Yeah, it wasn't head scratching because that guy played well for the Pats. I mean, it was head scratching to everybody else who's didn't really have him on the board. But you know what? The kid played well, and these quote unquote small schools, nobody's comes from a small school anymore. It's size and ability and projection. You play well, you're going to get drafted.
To a degree. Now, Cap, I actually have a question about your interior D line, because I'm looking at some names here. Because you drafted Nestor J. Sevilla, so did I say that right? Sevilla, late in the draft, on top of having Neil Farrell and Matthew Butler in house as late draft picks last year. I'm curious to who you feel like early on is going to make the roster and then maybe kind of have a breakout year for this, because there's a lot of names up here. Like, Bilal Nichols is a household name, but I think I like Neil Farrell and Matthew Butler coming out of the draft last year, but they just didn't really see the field. So I wondered, did they take a step? Do the guy you drafted this year, and that's the Jade
Oh,
take a step?
Brown's going to be there, baby. The kid out of Bama, Brown, pencil him in. Hell or high water, unless God forbid he gets a hangnail in preseason or whatnot. He's going to be there, and he's going to push for time. In fact, I really think that the Raiders might be getting, if they show enough, they will take those young kids and get rid of all that excess weight, no pun intended, for the older vets that are longer in the tooth. If the kids show promise,
that's the move.
They'll keep the kids. Like I said, so you figure Brown, I think, is going to be there. Farrell and Butler, the kid out of there, they were out of UT and LSU last year. You throw another Bama guy in there, you got three big schools out of the SEC with lots of potential. And by the way, Brown almost statistically was just as good as Carter out of Georgia this past year. Look it up stat wise. Hi, honey. Hi.
We're saying hi.
Hi.
There you go.
Boom.
But no, I agree, Coach, and I think that
Alex, that's the keeper.
yeah, that's it.
I know, right?
She
No,
was
that's
blurry,
the
but she
keeper.
still looked good blurry.
Well, you already put a ring on it, haven't you? I think he's aware.
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay, but
Yeah, that's 100% a keeper. You just got a beer brought to you. That's
Oh,
yeah.
It has nothing to do with who she is. It's just the fact that she brought you a beer.
Yeah, all I had to do was just clap my hands.
yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna figure out what your number is. And said, did you hear what he said about you?
See.
Did you
Oh,
hear
He's
what
starting
he
stuff.
said about
See,
you?
leave
Yeah,
that man's
exactly.
happy. Leave
I
that
have
man's
to get
happy
my
home.
own beer. And
Leave
it's
that man.
empty.
Leave that man's happy home alone. Okay, don't bother his feng shui over there, please and thank you.
Yeah, let me live my life. All right.
There you go.
It's my life. Never mind. Bon Jovi. But hey, I had to get my own beer, so yeah. There's
Oh, that's that's just hatred. That's what that is. That's just hatred. The fact that you had to get your own beer.
No. That's because the Filipina in the other room doesn't know how to crack open the bottle. Okay.
Oh, see, here we go. And now the truth comes out.
Well,
Give an edge. She takes
we
the
don't
bottle.
drink. Richie can attest to that. We don't drink, and she's a very, very nice lady. Very nice lady.
But
Richie can attest to that.
Right.
But yeah, back to your question, Coach. We are stacked at the interior D line, and I think that it's going to be a free for all as to who can make it. I think that Tillery is got a leg up on Bilal Nichols.
Really?
But yeah, I think so. I think Tillery has a leg up on Bilal Nichols, and everybody after that, we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I'm waiting for the air quote NASCAR package with Tyree Wilson, Chandler Jones, and Max Crosby all get their hand in the dirt on third down. I'm waiting for that. I'm sorry, I'm just a fan of personnel and scheme when it comes down to what you can do. Right.
Is that what they labeled it? They called it that?
Yeah,
that's a call to the 4DN package that the Giants ran in the early 2000s. They had four D linemen. It wasn't no D tackle. It was 4 edge rushers. They all lined them up and put their hand in the dirt and let them rush the passer on third down. So
Yeah,
called it the NASCAR
package. Yep.
Yeah.
I got you, Coach. I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Yep. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they're gonna do about that. How they deploy Tyree Wilson, because clearly, I mean, if you paying Max and Chandler, those gonna be your starting edges. But how you deploy and utilize Tyree is going to be the question. I mean, he's a good size. He can play inside and outside. He's a 275. He got a motor. He can run, so he can play a 3 or 4 eye, and he can run and play a 5 on the edge. So I'm curious to see what they do with him.
DZ, I think it's important to take note that different guys will fit different schemes.
And certain guys are just bad all over, and that's Jerry Tillery.
Right. So you can say that, but the answer is no. And no, there are guys that are bad all around. Fair enough.
Jerry Tillery.
I agree, but you're going to have guys.
Don't make me turn around, Coach.
Listen.
Well, no, hold on. Let me quickly finish here. You have two factors that play into players and their ability to potentially succeed ultimately at the NFL. One is, are they being put in the right positions that fit their skill sets? And that's ultimately a scheme fit, generally speaking. So that's one. And two, are they being coached the right way to make them feel the need and want in order to elevate their game to play well and properly? So, for example, a player could go to another team and feel that they're being coached, quote unquote, properly and play well. However, on a previous team, they could be asked to potentially do too much or do more than what they're capable of or play out of position and look like crap. Now, we can all hate former players that used to play for our team and think they should have fit and didn't. But it doesn't change the fact that they can still move on to other teams and play just as well. As an example, when you look at a guy like...
Okay, he turned into Max Headroom, and then his Wi-Fi died again. And the fact that he was talking, about Jerry Tillery and caping for him,
that was
probably
just
why.
The football gods.
Yeah, the football gods were telling you enough of that. Yeah, enough of those lies and caping for Jerry Tillery. He's dog water.
Coach,
he's dog water.
Coach, you know what? Thank you. It's scheme and player and how the player plays to the scheme. Okay,
right.
Jerry Tillery.
Thank you.
Jerry Tillery was nothing on the Chargers. I agree.
He was Terry Gillery.
I agree.
Speed
he
bump.
was nothing on the Chargers, but what the Raiders asked of him, he did well and with flying colors. And you can't take that away from what he did for our team of what we asked for him. Which
wasn't
him.
Much. That's the thing. I don't hate him because he's a former Charger. I'm not the type of person. I don't, just because you leave our team I don't hate you for the simple fact that you left our team. I don't think you have the acumen. I'm a former football player. I'm a former coach. I know I can look in your eyes and tell when you are a football player and you have that dog in you, and he does not. Just flat out, he just does not. He does not have the. He does not have the motor and the grit for to play an interior D lineman in this league. Period. It has nothing to do with the fact that
first round, right?
Right. That's that. I mean, yeah. So I mean, to spend that type of capital on him and him not pan out is a sore spot. But it's not. There's not the reason why I'm down on him. Only reason I'm down on him is the fact is I can tell from the 4.5 years that we dealt with him is the fact that he does not love football. He does not. He does not love football.
And that is coach's opinion.
It is.
That is coach's opinion, because whatever he had or didn't have with your coaching staff was with your coaching staff and the environment that he was in. Okay, I'm just saying, people play differently under different tutelage and in a different environment.
I'm not disputing that at all.
Which is why I'm saying I get it that you're pissed, and this I can say, you're pissed off that the Chargers wasted a first-round pick on a guy that didn't perform for y'all. Okay, kind of like
it's not so much about the fact that they picked him in the first round. I mean, honestly, truly, if you're a Chargers fan, you've been a Chargers fan a long time. Nobody wanted him. Yeah, that's fine. But I'm just talking about a pure football talent. Has nothing, and I would say this about anybody on any team in the whole 32 teams in the league. If the football talent, production, and just sheer attitude and want to, and I don't think Jerry Tillery has that. I don't think he ever has had that. That's my issue with him. And I could point out to you anybody in the league that I feel that way about. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's a former Charger.
But what
I have a question on that.
What about a change of scenery does wonders for different players, and the flip side, as we saw with Nnamdi Asomugha, a change of scenery can kill a career.
Yeah, he went to a Super Eagles team. Never heard about him again.
and then to never be heard of again.
And he was a beast.
He's now doing Broadway. Did y'all know that he's doing Broadway now?
Yes, he's doing Broadway because he has a leg up because his wife is hot and she has some in.
I actually heard he's pretty good though.
He is. He's a good actor.
Yeah,
but it doesn't hurt when your wife is Kerry Washington.
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact.
So
Certainly
Coach,
gets
I guess the big question here is, like, I look at a guy like Drew Brees.
Mhm.
He was mediocre on his first team. He got hurt, and then he bounced back and went to the Saints and is a consensus Hall of Famer now.
But was he mediocre with the Chargers? I don't think he was.
He
Yeah,
wasn't.
I think they just moved on from him.
I think they only moved on him because of his shoulder injury. That's why they moved on from him. He had a shoulder injury.
Right, but he was not seen in the same light. Like, here's an example. If you have a consensus Hall of Famer on your roster, you're going to allow him to recover or potentially see if he's going to recover
Well,
from
that's
an
the
injury.
thing.
I don't care.
You're talking about the throwing shoulder, and he wasn't a consistent Hall of Famer at the time he hurt the injury. He was 4 years into the league, which was a productive 4 years, yes, but he was not a Hall of Famer. He didn't have the numbers that he has now. Again, you have to realize the time and place that we're talking about. We're talking about mid 2000s versus 2019 when he was a consistent Hall of Famer. He had all the passing record. It's two different people.
And wasn't also the prospect of moving on for Eli Manning? I mean,
Eli Manning.
So it's like a dude with the bum shoulder or Eli Manning.
I have the first overall pick in the draft. I can pick the quarterback I want. So a guy that has a shoulder who may or may not recover from his throwing shoulder. That is
I'll do you one better.
Shoulders.
I'm kidding, but I was gonna say Trent Green.
right.
Right, but my point being, though, is that if you have a guy that you think is that guy, you're going to not get rid of him and keep him around if you think he's that guy, because you have the most important position, arguably in all of sports, locked in your roster, assuming that he's that guy. And you're going to then say, we'll bring in another quarterback, because worst case scenario, that other quarterback you bring in, heck, who cares? Maybe you trade him for a second round pick if the Drew Brees comes back and does well, but you guys opted to move on from him. And so my point ultimately is that when you have that critical of a position on your roster, if you think he's that good, you're not going to let him go. You're going to see what happens and you're going to wait it out. You opted to move on. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but my point is that you didn't see him in the same way as you now look at him now, having come through New Orleans.
Nobody can predict the future, Rich. You're projecting here, and
I agree, but this is my point, though, which is different guys will perform better in certain systems. Drew Brees performed better under Sean Payton than he did with the Chargers.
And yet again, if he hadn't hurt his shoulder, who knows what he would have been with the Chargers? He could have been a Hall of Famer as well. He could have not been. We just don't know. I mean, we can play, if it's a fifth all day long. But regardless, you looking at it from a perspective, I got the number 1 overall pick. A guy has an injury to his throwing shoulder, which may or may not be come back from. Remember, he was supposed to be a Dolphin. And the Dolphins, he failed a physical with the Dolphins and ended up with the Saints. So there was clear questions about his throwing arm. And let's be real, he didn't have a cannon to begin with.
No.
So you have to take your chances, or you hedge your bet. Let me put it that way. You have to hedge your bet in a sense when it comes to that situation. Prime example, if any of our quarterbacks got hurt right now and they hurt their throwing shoulder, it was a labrum or he needed Tommy John surgery, something like this will take a long time. Let's look at Brock Purdy's injury, for instance. And if they realize they can move off of Brock Purdy and get Caleb Williams, you would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So same situation. So again, it's business. It's not personal. I love Drew Brees. I wish we'd have kept Drew Brees. That's always been my take. I love Drew Brees, but we didn't, and I understand the business acumen of it too, as well. I get it. I mean, again, Phillip Rivers was a very productive quarterback in his own right. So I mean, again, we never had an issue with comeback now to having quarterbacks being productive in our system. It's just been other things.
My point ultimately is that systems matter. Coaching can matter, and it can improve or tank a player. We saw that with the Eagles team where they did not do well. We've seen the reverse happen with other guys come into systems where they were perfect fits for what they needed for that player. And I think that there's multiple examples of both, where you see players that ought to be good look bad, and you see players that were seen as busts or not good or didn't have interest in football or whatever the case may be, move to a specific team where they found their groove and turned out to be rather, reasonable. Just they fit is ultimately it came down. They fit the team that they moved to. And I think that that's something that cannot be undersold, that certain guys just require certain systems and certain motivations, and it is what it is. I think Tillery might be that type of player. I think Tillery might be that prototypical Patriot player that when he's pigeonholed into a role can basically be kicked hard enough in the rear to step up to fill what he's asked to do. However, when he's being asked to self-motivate, might not be able to do it himself. And I think that that's your comment about him not being a dog, him not being that guy. That might be true. But if he's got someone constantly behind him kicking him in the butt, then he could well step up to the plate on a constant basis to kind of do the thing. And that's ultimately up to the coaching staff to recognize what type of player he is. And I think that the Raiders in their current regime have managed to find something that allows Tillery to look better than he actually is, which is not a bad thing because they found value in a guy that was discarded by a former rival. And I just think that's, I think we've seen that play out in how he played for the Raiders.
And I'll say one more thing while there's a segue there, is that there's a certain quarterback who's the answer to a trivia question, by the way, is who is the only Super Bowl winning quarterback that was an MVP and a Heisman Trophy winner and the first person taken in the draft. And that would be Mr. Jim Plunkett. That's a trivia answer. He's the only person that answers all of those monikers. Okay. Jim Plunkett sucked ass in New England because it was New England and he got his ass handed to him game after game after game. He left there disgruntled. San Francisco picked him up on a flyer to be a backup there. And he goes down to the Raiders after Frisco and is again a backup to Dan Pastorini. But look what happens when they needed him to shine. And it was the environment of playing under Tom Flores and with the Raiders. You got two Super Bowl winning performances out of one quarterback that sucked everywhere else. It's a matter of playing in an environment and for a team that gives you that love. And I don't think that Jerry Tillery got the love. And I'm sorry, coach, he didn't get the love. And that's why maybe he didn't have the dog in him, because he didn't feel wanted there. And it's easy when you're not feeling and trust me, I can go on and on about this, about not feeling loved and not wanting to perform, but I don't want to get myself in trouble anymore. And I just did. But if you get the positive attitude
they have Viagra for that.
And feedback, you'll do a lot.
I heard that, Rich.
You'll do a lot.
Listen, I guess from a football perspective, I'm gonna say this and we can move on. I guess from a football perspective, my issue with Jerry Tillery is this: we've had numerous coaches coach him. We put him in numerous positions on the field to produce. We've changed defenses multiple times, full-on scheme changes, and put him in different looks. He's played in a 4-3. He's played in a 3-4. He's played outside. He's played inside. 3-eye, 4-eye, 3-tech, edge. He's done it all, and he's not been highly productive in any space. So from that perspective, most coaches would look at him like, I think he's a bust, especially for being a first-round pick, because he's had chances. You literally have 4 years of full-on film of him doing multiple things, and he's never done anything well. You can't give me one shining superlative to say he's good at. He doesn't stop the run well. He's not an exceptional interior pass rusher. He's not an exceptional edge rusher. He's actually a little bit on the slower side to be an edge rusher. So that's my issue with Jerry Tillery, is the fact that he might be a solid, maybe rotational role player somewhere, but as far as being a starting interior D lineman in this league, I don't think he is. That's my personal opinion.
And I think that's fair. And I think I think you can kind of go back and forth. I still think that you can find teams, coaches, and schemes where certain players will fit as cogs. And I think that actually fits with what you're saying, Coach, which is if you want that guy to be the guy in a scheme where they're basically asked to go on an island to do their thing, that requires a certain form of motivation. But if you're looking for a Patriot-style team, which the Raiders are slowly kind of turning into, looking to kind of build that that kind of ship that can kind of collectively move forward, you're not necessarily looking for individuals. You're looking for cogs in a machine or cogs in a clock that can move you in a direction as long as you have a vision. And at that point there, you're just simply looking for a guy that can kind of fill those holes at that spot. And you don't necessarily need a self-motivator. You just need a guy that can fit certain things. And as long as a guy like Tillery or whoever the next guy is up after his contract is done, they can all fill that role. And I think that's kind of what we're all saying. Oddly enough, I think we're all actually saying the same thing. It's just, my point is, guys like that can still fit on a team as long as they're only being asked to be a cog, right?
Yeah.
But
you don't draft a dude in the first round to be a cog. So that's
Exactly.
the Raiders never drafted him in the first round. That was the Chargers' mistake.
Yeah, but there's like different. So like Matt said, Tillery is the Chargers' Cleve Farrell. Well, like Cleve Farrell was also taken in the first round, right, and then go somewhere else, because it's one thing when you take a dude in the first round and expect to build your offense, defense, whatever around them, versus picking someone off the waiver wire and saying, well, let's see what happens. And they somewhat produce because there's no expectation anymore.
Right.
Like they are a bust. So if they go and remotely show that they can still play, like it's a much more positive narrative the second go around versus comparing the team that invested a large chunk of their future in them being a vital part of the team going forward.
Yeah, because if he had to redraft that year and until he redrafted, I'm sure he does not go in the first round.
He's probably a third round. He's probably
and
a third round
time,
guy.
And like if you
Third
take a
round,
guy in the
fourth
third
round guy.
round, you're not expecting to build your defensive line around him. You're like, well, hopefully this guy maybe turns into that, but at least we got a solid rotational player.
Right.
And you're not doing that stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, the same draft that we had Cleve Farrell at number 4, we got Max Crosby in the 4th round.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
And
now he's the building block.
He's a first-round pick, right? Like looking at him now, Max Crosby is a round one, pick one type
Absolutely.
guy.
Absolutely.
Top 5 guy.
A top 5 guy.
Yeah.
Close your eyes and hand the card in.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, I never got to finish because the beavers that are running the Canadian internet here decided to fall asleep on the job.
There you go.
They had too much beer.
3 for 3.
I just want to quickly blast through the UDFAs that I am interested in for the Broncos that I think we should all be looking out for. I'm going to do so very quickly because I want to move on to the schedule. An interesting guy that I think we should look forward to for the Broncos who they signed is a guy named Seth Benson. He is an inside backer who has shown out pretty well on special teams. I also think that he could be the type of guy that you can see as that kind of back end of the roster type guy, the one that shows out when he's asked to, but may never be the guy. I could see Benson being that guy. We had a guy named Joe Jones. I could see Benson kind of filling that type of role, who was a special teams ace. Moving on, if you're talking about the guy that I think is going to be the most exciting and has the best chance at making the 53-man roster, that is Jaleel McLaughlin. He is a running back out of Youngstown State. He's got great burst. If you're looking for a comparator, he is a guy that you can kind of compare to a Philip Lindsay type, or I heard Cameron Parker of MHRT Network have a very interesting comparison. The late, great Ronnie Hillman from the Denver Broncos would be another interesting guy to compare him to. Quick back, fast twitch, that kind of stuff. I could see him filling that role. I see him being a 2A, 2B kind of guy for our roster. And another guy that I think is going to be an interesting guy is Mustafer, PJ Mustafer, who is a nose tackle who we signed as a UDFA. He is what?
This is Sarah McLaughlin comment. Now I'm just singing "Arms of the Angel" in my head.
Oh no! I don't need an earworm like that. No.
As a Canadian, I'm allergic to that crap. You can make that go away.
He says, I'm Jaleel McLaughlin, and for 10 cents a day.
And if as an American you happen to like Sarah McLaughlin, you can take her.
You
I
too
do like
can be a
Sarah
Bronco.
McLaughlin. I do, but not that friggin' song.
That song is so tragic, bro. Like that song is so sad. Like it just makes you want to give money.
But
like
it's always just paired with depressing stuff, man. It's
right.
like deprived kids or dogs.
Dogs,
like
yeah, just
alive.
badly beaten animals. It's just like, it's wrong.
Like,
just
come
wrong.
on.
My
Or
CD's
played at a
over there,
funeral.
and unfortunately,
Right.
I can't because there's stuff in front of them. I can't get them. I would say there are plenty of good Sarah Mac songs, and that's not one of them.
I thought that was her only song.
So I saw a Sarah McLaughlin CD, and I pulled out a lighter, but it wouldn't catch fire fast enough, so I just walked away. But anyway, like I said, PJ Mustafa is going to be an interesting guy to look out for in preseason. I believe he's going to be down on the depth chart, but I think you're going to start seeing him climb up pretty quickly. That is a position within that's within a position group that I think the Broncos really need help in, was that in that interior D line. And I think that that's a guy that could really show out and maybe one of the not so uncommon UDFAs that the Broncos seem to find as unique talent in the undrafted rankings.
Building a Mystery and even I Will Remember You was decent. Building a Mystery was a fantastic song. So you had to ask. And Possession.
I don't know what we're talking about.
I know,
Sarah
right? I'm
McLaughlin. Building a Mystery and Possession. And by the way, Possession is about like being like what do you call it when a dude is on you, obsessed with you. It's a very weird but cool song, Possession. Look at the words on that. It's about somebody that is.
It can also get you like 3 to 5.
Yeah, it's about being stalked, but it's a really good song. But Possession is that I like that song, as well as Building a Mystery off of the Surfacing album. So again, I got 2 of her albums. She's got some good stuff. But
here in Canada, stalking has jail time.
Well, yeah, it does down here as well.
Okay. So another guy that I think is really interesting, like I said earlier, Broncos have been really active. We signed a bunch of UDFAs and we cut 4 of them almost like after their day one here. And then we brought in some XFL players and some other guys to backfill those UDFAs that we cut. One guy that I think has got some interesting, options for us is a guy named Jacques Patrick. If you guys remember, the Broncos last year had a large running back by the name of Latavius Murray, who was like 6'4" and like 250 or something stupid like that. Jacques Patrick is another one of those types of running backs that Sean Payton likes. For those of you who don't remember, Latavius Murray was originally with the Saints.
No, he was not. No, he was not.
He was drafted by the Raiders.
Oh,
He
Raiders.
was drafted by the Raiders out of UCF.
Sorry,
Get
you're right.
that shit right.
Sorry, you're right. I was wrong. And Peyton was a fan of his. And Peyton likes running backs that are that kind of size and mold. And I believe that he has his eye on Jacques Patrick. So I believe that we could see Jacques Patrick fill that RB3, RB4 role.
What's his name? Jacques.
Yeah. And so that's at JACQUES. And he is 6'3" and 240 pounds.
That's Jaquez.
That'll get it done.
Jaquez.
No, it's not. It's just not.
Jaquez the rapper.
Yeah, it's just not. So, anyways, I actually think that what Peyton is looking to build is a diverse group of offensive players. And I think unlike former regimes, Peyton knows how to use different skill sets against different defenses. So I think Peyton's looking for the really big bruiser. I think he's looking for the guys that kind of fit the well-rounded role. And then I think that a guy like McLaughlin is going to fill that Darren Sproles speed style role. And I think he's looking to kind of cover all of those bases to kind of look for mismatches against opposing defenses. And that's kind of what my thought process is in terms of what we're going to start seeing from the Denver Broncos offense. And so those are the guys that I'm thinking from the UDFAs and just kind of the free agent signings that were outside of the draft and they're outside of our current roster that we should be looking out for. And of course, there's always room for the random guy that just starts really, coming into his own when they start coming to the NFL. And I'm all for bringing in young, cheap, spectacular talent. So we'll see where they end up.
Fair.
So I'm going to throw over to you, Coach. Let's get into the roster, the schedule, rather. Sorry, and talk about what you think for the upcoming schedule for your Chargers and what you think is going to become of it.
Well, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And to not be the division winner, I'm just like, we got a murderous row of sorts. But it's interesting in certain matchups that how things can play out. I mean, week 1 we got Miami. I'm looking forward to that one as a rematch. The whole Tua versus Herbert dynamic. But
the contract game,
and it was the contract game.
That's what I'm calling. Yeah, they're both gonna be playing for that extension.
Well, but somebody might get it before that game happens. Who knows? I mean,
what would be fitting is if they played the Money song as one of the lead-ins to like the first.
It must be with the Shane McMahon song.
Money.
The Shane McMahon song.
No. If you're good, no. The only good Money song was the Pink Floyd one. Doom doom da doom 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 da doom 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 doom.
Money.
Yeah.
Get away.
I know that.
Think I'll buy me a football team. See, it even goes with that.
You got me. So but like I said, the Miami game, I think the teams getting Miami so early in the season is exciting because we likely will both be mostly healthy. You play marquee matchups in the later in the year, you may not have the same build up to it because everybody might not be healthy. But the fact that you go on week 1 and we typically rest starters in preseason nowadays under Staley, so likely most of our guys, big name guys will be healthy and ready to go. Assuming they don't get hurt in OTAs or minicamp or training camp, knock on wood. But yeah. So Miami game is definitely a good start this season, home opener. I'm curious about the Tennessee game because who's going to start for Tennessee is going to be Tannehill. It's going to be Will Levis. I mean, who is going to be? We got to go to Tennessee, but I'm glad we're doing that early because that's a cold weather area. So we play that late, then we would be playing another cold weather game.
Get a healthy King Henry there, man.
Yeah, well, that's true too. So
you get a rumbling King.
Yeah. So question of who's going to be under center, and of course King Henry being King Henry. But I like how we played against him last year. I think we did make him work. I mean, he had 100 yards, but it was a rough 100. I think he had to have like 20 to 22 carries to get there. So, and that was pretty solid based upon how our run defense was ranked last year. Stopping him, short of 250 yards was a win. So yeah, I like that. Going to Minnesota and playing Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, that's also interesting. And we get Vegas week 4. Early bye week bothers me. That bothers me because I'm like, because the early bye week, especially if you don't have a lot of injuries, it's kind of rough. I mean, you have to play 13 games straight with a no break. So that's a little bit of a rough go. I was reading a article by I think it was Warren Sharp on Twitter, and he was ranking who had the best and worst net rest rating, and the Chargers were a -6. Which is like right at like top 10 worst rest ratings when it comes down to the amount of rest we're going to get versus the amount of rest our opponents are going to get. The primetime games we have 5 primetime games, I believe. So that's another thing. A few Monday night games, we got a Peacock game on Saturday. We got a Prime Video game.
Yep.
So yeah, very interesting schedule. We play Dallas at home. They're followed by the Chiefs. That's going to be 2 heavy hitting matchups. I'm curious about what the Chicago team is going to look like with the new weapons they got in Justin Fields having somebody to throw to. Playing Aaron Rodgers at New York. That's a East Coast game for us. So that'll be interesting. So, but it is a night game, so that'll help us out as far as the time difference is concerned. So we got a Monday night game in New York. Detroit with their new lease on life. That's gonna be a good one. What's Jordan Love gonna look like in Green Bay? Questionable. We get Baltimore at home, thank God. We got to travel to Baltimore again, like the 5th time in a row. So I do like that. New England, who knows? I mean, this is, dice roll. Who knows what they're going to look like, good or bad.
Baltimore's always a tough team, though.
Oh, no, I'm talking about New England. I'm definitely saying Baltimore. I'm not overlooking Baltimore at all. That's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
The New England game is, you just don't know exactly what you're going to get. And we got to go to Foxborough. So, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be cold. That's going to probably be our really first cold weather game. I don't know what the Green Bay's like in November.
Jammer for that game.
Huh?
You need to bring a signal jammer for that game.
For the New England game?
Yes.
Yeah. Get a counter UAV.
Bill already
going.
has one. Yeah, Bill already has one. Yeah, you need a counter UAV.
Yeah.
You need a counter UAV.
Yeah. You need to bring a signal jammer to stop the mics from picking up the stuff in your locker room. Yeah.
There you go.
Gentlemen,
ladies and gentlemen, Captain Jack's heading out. He's got another show to go to. NFL Nation Live. You can check them out after this one is done.
After this show, come on over to Captain Jack Rackham. We're going to talk about the Raiders schedule because we didn't get a chance to do it. But check out the guys
we
here.
Got to answer Raiders questions.
Don't go anywhere. And by the way, answer that Jimmy G question for Matt if you guys don't mind.
I will. Matt, stick around. I have an answer to that question for you because I think it's.
I have the answer, Matt. So.
Okay, well, I want to hear what that. No. I can't hear what that answer is, but he can text me. Alex, you can text me. Guys, I got to go. Take care. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Yeah.
See you, Cap.
Yeah. So week 14, we get Denver for the first time at home, and follow right behind that Vegas, Buffalo, and Denver again. Then end the season with Kansas City. So that's a good one. I want to say that in this whole entire schedule, there are no gimmies. In my opinion, like this is not a one of those. Well, we can beat them kind of thing. I think Miami's gonna be tough, especially Tua being healthy. Tennessee's always gonna be hard nosed. They're gonna play you tough, even though if they're good or not is a question. But them playing you tough is gonna always be a thing. Minnesota's still good. I think they're gonna be improved defensively with Brian Flores as being a DC. And of course, our division games are the division games. I think Dallas is gonna be tough. Yeah, I don't think it's you would look at Detroit as being a gimme, but they're tough. We don't know when we get out of Green Bay, but they got a solid roster. So I think Green Bay has a solid roster, even if Jordan Love isn't the guy. So they still can play you tough. So yeah, outside of New England maybe, but again, Bill is always good defensively. So I don't see any gimmies on our schedule at all. So we're going to come to play. I think bar none, we got to come to play every week. We can't take any weeks off. We can't have any lulls. I think we have to be solid every week to compete for the playoffs. Period. I mean, regardless of how we do in the division, just our overall schedule doesn't lend to the idea that we can take weeks off, or have those games where you WTF, like, what are we doing this week? So,
yeah, I will say, off of Matt's comment, you guys did win the schedule release game with that video. I love the Chiefs-aholic, dude. They had
the dude taking his ankle bracelet off and running.
Which I'm pretty sure that dude's still at large. So
right. So,
I don't know about that. I mean, do you guys see the Titans video?
That was good too, but I mean, all they did was sit out there on Broadway and ask a bunch of drunk chicks and just
that was more comedy than thought process.
Well, I agree, but that still didn't make it comedy gold. Like that was.
It was. But I mean, just overall, I think the Chargers, the effort they put into that anime video last 2 years is A1.
Chargers thing was damn near like Pixar production. Talking multi-million dollars in their effects here.
Listen, if nothing else, our social media and production teams are class acts in the league. Definitely give them credit for that.
And Coach, I do agree that, and this is part of. I'm gonna tie our two segments together and bridge the gap for you here. This is part of the reason why I think your roster depth is so important. Is injuries are inevitable in the NFL, and I think it's incredibly important that you have depth at those key positions. I do not believe that this is the season that you can afford to have injuries like you have the past 2 or 3 years.
Oh, no, dude. We have a much harder schedule this year than last year. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I also think that your division rivals, with the exception of the Broncos. But I think your division rivals have actually stepped up their game in terms of backfilling their depth. And so I think that you have the Raiders and the Chiefs in particular that have actually filled out some of the holes on their roster where they were weak the year prior, whereas the Broncos, I think, are just a little bit lagging behind. But nonetheless, I still think that you can't afford to have those type of injuries because you have a way, way harder schedule this year, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And it's funny to me because I actually liked the limited picture I had. I actually like what the Broncos did in the draft. I may be in the minority, but I like the players I got. I like the players I got. I
the
think
picks they had and where they were at and the moves they made to get some more, I thought they did pretty good.
I think they did pretty good.
I mean, we know Richie's concerns with the offensive line.
Yeah, the only thing you didn't do is you had opportunities to draft offensive line.
It's hard to substantially increase your offensive line when you're not picking in the top 20 because you're not going to get.
Whose fault is that?
Well, yeah, Sean Payton's
Your front office of trading them picks.
Right.
That's what that is.
No, that's my point, though, right? Which is like you had an opportunity and you decided to say, no. We're going to get a coach and a quarterback, but we don't need to actually build the team.
Yeah, but I mean,
that actually plays on the field, right?
When you consider the options, I think, or this is the way I look at it. Like they knew they invested that much already in Russell Wilson. They paid him all this money, and it kind of blew up. So it was either do we rebuild the offensive line or do we try to bring in the QB whisperer coach and see if we can turn this around? Otherwise, we got to just blow everything up,
No, I don't disagree with that as an approach, but my point is that you brought in a quarterback that you traded the world for who did not step up to the plate, but did decide to go in every single commercial that existed on national television in his first year with the Broncos.
Yeah,
and
forgot about those Subway commercials. They ripped those off. They took those off fast. They took those off so fast.
Yeah, it's afterthought.
Which is wild when you think about it, because I mean, think about how much money Subway probably spent to do all that, and then they're just like, "Oh, dude, this guy's washed. Take him down. Put Charles Barkley back out there."
Right. Yeah. Steph Curry, where are you? Steph Curry, where are you? Candace Parker,
Jared,
get
is
in here.
Good? Is Jared still skinny? I don't care.
No, Jared's in jail. Jared's in jail.
I know that.
Can we Skype him in jail?
Yeah. Is he still skinny?
Hi, I'm Jared.
I eat one full cut a day.
Listen, I promise you he's still skinny, running from Nasty Nate every night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He wants his cocktail fruit.
He's got a different kind of foot long, right?
Right, you're right. Oh, man. Yes, indeed.
A different type of cold cut.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Damn, Kent's not even here. And this
I know, right? Yeah, we got to replay this for him.
Oh, man. Schedule, games?
Yeah. So either way, I just think that when you look at where your schedule's at and where your player personnel is at, I just think that your draft this year and your depth on your roster, your UDFAs, also.
Oh, yeah, it's go time, buddy. There's no room for error.
And the looming contract of Herbert, which will really diminish your ability to retain key players on your roster after the season. The
roster's going to look totally different next year. I promise you that.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very important thing to kind of keep in mind. Alex, over to you with regards to the Chiefs and your schedule.
Yeah.
What do
you want to talk about tough schedule? But I mean, that's what happens when you win the Super Bowl.
You should be tough. I mean, that used to be the rule. Like, you want to have the hardest schedule as a Super Bowl winner.
Which, I mean, last year the schedule was pretty tough too, or at least going into the year looked pretty tough. But honestly, kind of similar to Coach's rundown of the Chargers, looking at the Chiefs schedule, I mean, there really is there's no relaxing game or relaxing matchup. I mean, opening night, Thursday night football against the Detroit Lions. I mean, that's going to be an exciting game because the Lions are going to have
fight kneecaps,
tremendous amount of offseason hype, and that's going to be kind of their coming out game, one way or the other.
Oh,
you
I
know
like
you're
the
gonna get the best.
headline. I like the headline of that game because the last time Golf and Mahomes played against each other was that Monday night
It just
game. They
blows,
both put
like
up 50 points.
130 points were scored or something dumb.
Right. I know the
mean,
over under was way over that night.
yeah, but so I mean that's going to be an exciting opening week, and I like everything the Lions are doing. And
Lions are crazy.
It's going to be
Lions are so dangerous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, the Aiden Hutchinson, like that dude's a beast. I think he's good. I mean, he's only going to get better. But they definitely hit on all of their draft picks. But similar to what I say about Jacksonville, like you should eventually be good if you're picking in the top 5 every year.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah.
But either way, that's going to be an exciting game. Then literally the week after that, they got Jacksonville Jaguars, which I mean, played them twice last year. Both games were pretty close. And I mean, I think Jacksonville is an ascending team. And, I don't think that's going to be an easy matchup. I'd say the only easy game or easy matchup on here is really the week 3, and that's the Bears. And that's just because you don't know. I mean, you don't know how improved they're going to be, if they're going to be improved at all. You just don't know. Then week 4 is the Jets, so that'll be exciting.
Aaron Rodgers,
in New York.
Aaron.
The big thing I noticed as someone who goes to games, they only had 2 noon games, which is really rough when you're trying to not go to work the next day and can't attend the games without being in a certain state of mind. And they also they got 6 primetime games right now. So, definitely the whole nation's going to be watching the Chiefs. But right after week 4 against the Jets, they go to the Vikings. I mean, they were, obviously a good regular season team. And it'll be interesting to see how it matches up if the Jordan Addison is kind of as advertised right now, because everything that's coming out is he's kind of, high praise ahead of schedule, and it might be an even more potent offense when you give Justin Jefferson in someone like that. So that's not going to be an easy matchup. And then week 5 is the first AFC West matchup against the Broncos. That would be on Prime Video.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. I mean, been a while since Broncos have beat the Chiefs, so.
Subtle jab.
Well, no, he's not wrong. And the one interesting piece is that the Broncos have struggled to identify an offensive-minded head coach that can actually coach the offense.
Yeah. So that'll make it interesting, and it's early on. But any
actually,
AFC West.
The big difference between Peyton and Reed is Andy Reid is pure offense. He kind of says the defense is a secondary. Sean Payton is an offensive-minded head coach, but he's always valued defensive teams.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very interesting dynamic to have Reed versus Payton go up against one another. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Payton did have that bounty program, so
I know.
Yeah.
People don't
was that Greg Williams? Was that
Payton? That was Greg Williams as Sean Payton's DC. So I mean, it's all in house. That's all there.
You go.
That nothing happened without going by Payton first.
True.
So, but no, I mean, any AFC West matchup is always a good close game. I mean, they're always hard fought, division rival games. So, and interestingly enough, they kind of have a stretch here because they play the Broncos pretty early and get that out of the way. So we have Broncos October 12th, and then Chargers, and then Broncos again. So I mean, a 3-game stretch of AFC West opponents that could potentially go bad for them. Like I said, those are close games. I would never predict that any AFC West team right now would sweep the Chiefs, but I could certainly see them splitting games with any AFC West opponent just because of the playing twice a year component and familiarity and just how those games always go. But I mean, that's a pretty tough 3-week stretch there. And then they have the Miami Dolphins in Germany, which is
Oh.
I think kind of unfortunate because that would have been Tyreek Hill's. It's a home game for KC, but it's in freaking Munich or wherever the hell it is.
That's, you know what?
That would have been cool to have Tyreek come back to KC because he would have, probably gotten cheered, but probably gotten booed, and it would have just been a cool environment. But I get the NFL from a business perspective wanting to put that type of game in Germany, but it's just like,
this is crazy though. Y'all leave the high altitude of Denver and got to travel all the way to Germany for your next game.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
We
just got a bye week after that. We just got a bye week after that.
Yeah,
but then have a bye week and then go into the Super Bowl rematch with the Eagles Monday Night Football in KC. Then play at Las Vegas, at Green Bay, then Buffalo at home. Patriots
gotta go to
away.
Gotta go to Foxborough.
And
Buffalo's
Raiders.
gonna be a brutal game at that point of the season for you.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be in Arrowhead though, so it's I guess more. At least you won't be unaware of what happens weather-wise, I guess. But that's going to be a good game. Buffalo's beaten KC in the regular season twice, so it's going to be a good game, barring some unforeseen decline in Buffalo's play. I don't see that changing. The Packers game, I think, could turn up to be a good game. Jordan Love has played against KC and didn't look particularly great, but that's also factoring in that he probably didn't get a whole lot of reps or action with Rodgers and kind of got thrusted into it, but it'll be interesting. And I'm actually kind of excited to see that, especially in December, kind of after Jordan Love gets a year, because Jordan Love was called he was compared to Patrick Mahomes coming into the draft. And I think it'll just be interesting to see, how that shapes up after he gets almost a full season under his belt. But yeah, then go to New England, then Vegas at home, Bengals at home, and then finish the year at the Chargers, to be determined on the game. So potential Sunday Night Football.
You could flex in or out depending on what's going on. Yeah.
Because honestly, that could be a pretty important game, especially when you look at Casey.
I'm hoping it will be anyway.
Look at your last 4 games.
Yeah.
Your last 4 games, that's a gauntlet right there at the end.
But I won't call New England a part of that gauntlet, but Buffalo for sure. Like if you move Buffalo and New England, and you swap those games, those last 4 are tough.
Yeah. Especially Bengals and Chargers back to back is tough. That's gonna be tough. So this is kind of what their schedule has always sort of been like, given where they finish every year. So you hope they were 14-3 this last year. So shoot for something similar to that. I could see them with maybe 5 losses, in splitting some of these AFC West games, but to this point though, it's really only been the competition with the Chargers, and I know that those 2 games are going to be hard fought, close, because they always are, and especially if the Chargers are fully healthy, I think a lot of the moves that they've made are with the mindset of beating KC, and Mike Williams was Kansas City killer, but doesn't seem to ever play a full game, but definitely makes his presence known.
If he's on the field, you got a shot. If he's not on the field, who knows?
Yeah. But you have healthy, all of those guys. You have healthy Bosa, Mac. That's it. All of those match up really well. Similar Denver, AFC West matchups. Like, you just don't know how Sean Payton's going to work, Russ's game and get his scheme out there and how that would play. Obviously, every move they've made has had Sean Payton's touch on it. So that'll be interesting and exciting to see how that changes. Raiders as well. Making improvements. I don't know. I just don't know where they'll at with Jimmy G and that stuff, because I kind of see the Raiders using this year as a sort of setting a progress point, or kind of a bar for themselves, and if it goes good. If not, hopefully they're getting Caleb Williams or a better QB. But I mean, AFC, like I said, AFC West opponent. So even if the Raiders don't have a good roster, like it's still going to end up being a close game. That's just how they go. So very well could split with any AFC West opponent. But you know, it's going to be a hard 17 weeks for them. But
can someone bring up the Raiders comment from earlier?
yeah, he was asking, if I remember, it was, do we think that Garoppolo's an upgrade from Derek Carr? Are there any worse, I guess, with Garoppolo, and that he'll stay healthy all year? I believe that was it.
Well,
His name Matt. Matt's still here. It was a two-parter. It was a two-parter.
That's a twofer. So, do I think he is an upgrade over Carr? No.
I second that.
I disagree.
Now, do I think that Garoppolo? Do I think that Garoppolo can stay healthy the entire season? No. He has not done so to date, where he has struggled to stay healthy for most of the year. That being said, Garoppolo's best health seasons were with the Patriots in terms of how they played.
Well, he didn't play for the Patriots. Like, he literally played like 3 games.
There we go. Do you see Jimmy G as a drop-off from Derek Carr, and do you see him being healthy the whole season?
There you go.
That's it.
I don't think he's necessarily a drop-off. I think he has some elements of his game that are better than Derek Carr's, which may actually play out better with the current roster. So, for example, Derek Carr had a weaker arm than Jimmy Garoppolo, but Derek Carr was able to stay healthier throughout the majority of the season. So,
did he really? I think Derek Carr's arm is stronger than Jimmy Garoppolo's.
No. Jimmy G's been able to throw more accurate, longer shots down the field, which bodes better for a guy like Adams and
Hunter Renfrow.
And Renfrow as well, who's got a quick twitch that can make it down the field.
I'm just putting it out there. I disagree with both of you, but I'll explain my take on it after.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I disagree with that. That I would think, looking at it from who their play caller is and how he wants his offense run, I think that Jimmy G, a healthy Jimmy G, is an upgrade for the whole team over Derek Carr.
You can't add caveats, though.
Huh?
You said, well, if the guy can stay healthy, then he's better. It's like, well, of course I'd say the same thing, but that's not the point. The point is, can he actually stay healthy? Yes or no?
Well, I mean, it's just, but like at the same time, what's the point of talking about it if he's not healthy? So, I mean, you got to look at it from the signing is not anticipating he's not going to be there. So, I mean, from their front office assessment, I think they were thinking that's an upgrade from Derek Carr because he's a game manager who's not going to make a dumb mistake to turn the ball over or kill a drive. Where Derek Carr, not being someone that watches every Raiders game religiously, but who watches enough Raiders Chiefs games and red zone to know that Derek Carr is keen to turn the ball over in very pivotal moments in a game or when something needs to be done. Yeah, sure. I mean, that was the knock with
again. We just shooting straight bullets now. Is that what we're doing?
That moonshine barrel must be on its last drop.
Probably.
But I mean, I think that Jimmy G is an upgrade for the Raiders because of those traits that he is not going to turn the ball over. He's going to move the ball. He's going to move it efficiently, and he's not going to kill drives. And he's going to have sustained drives and overall improve their production. I mean, do I think he stays healthy the whole year? No. And that's why I said if it is a healthy Jimmy G and you get a full year of that, I mean, the Raiders could find a way to make the playoffs with a player like that.
I'll agree with that for sure. Yeah, 100%.
And I mean, at the same time, he's not like he has bad weapons. Like he has one of the best, if not the best receiver in the league. And Renfrow is a pretty quality slot. Michael Mayer, I mean, you don't know how he'll pan out, but he, at least on paper, is a pretty lethal weapon.
Didn't they get a kid from the Patriots and they signed a kid from the Patriots?
Yep.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Kobe Meyer.
yeah.
Yep. And he's a pretty damn good receiver too. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, and that's a McDaniels wanted him. Like McDaniels has used him. McDaniels has had to scheme a game plan with Myers in his offensive unit. So that, and same with Jimmy G. Like he's had to run an offense in New England with Jimmy G before. So I think it's a familiarity which allows them to open up the playbook and be more in sync on how they want to approach things and their philosophy every game. Whereas I think Derek Carr being kind of the veteran with a new coach, but a veteran who's been around the block and I mean wasn't unsuccessful, at least from a statistical standpoint, I think probably gave more pushback or gave more insight into what he thought they should do. And so that's kind of why I think from the approach the Raiders are what I feel taking by hiring McDaniels and how it looks, I've at least get the sense of how he wants to run his team. I think Jimmy G is an upgrade for him. And I think from the perspective of game management and what they need, because I think Derek Carr is, while he has an arm and can move the ball and can get numbers, like that doesn't win games when he needs to.
Yeah, that could be circumstantial as well. But I think that Richie will kind of nod his head when I say this, because it's two things that's glaring to me about what the Raiders did in the offseason, right? You had a plethora, and I mean plethora of draft picks, right? And you spent them well, but what you didn't spend them on was any offensive lineman, because you brought in a quarterback that is injury prone. So your countenance should have been to do your best to protect him, right? Because let's be honest, the offensive line wasn't, the bee's knees of the AFC West last year, right? So you would think that if you were investing long-term into Jimmy G, knowing he's injury prone, you want to do your best to protect him. They did not do that. And on top of that, to double down on that aspect, they drafted a backup quarterback, a capable one. So I think they kind of almost feel like he may go down at some point. They need somebody that they like system-wise to bring in case Jimmy G does go down. So if you move off Derek Carr for that, I would have just kept Derek Carr for all that matter. I mean, because they're not paying Jimmy G much less than that Derek was going to make this year. And you look at all the people they signed and they didn't invest in O-line at all. I'm like,
Well, let's look at it this way. The Chiefs, the first thing they did when they signed Patrick Mahomes to a mega deal was they went out.
Mega. Not that mega anymore.
Well,
not anymore. It was at the time. At the time, it was 10 years.
At the time, they basically stretched him out basically from now until forever. But at the same time, when you look at the first thing the Chiefs did when they signed Mahomes was they shored up the entirety of the offensive line. And you look at the success of the Chiefs after making that decision, and the proof is in the pudding, as they say. Now, look over at what the Raiders have done when they've had Derek Carr and now Jimmy Garoppolo. I do agree with Coach. And frankly, I'm going to extrapolate that and say, look at what the Broncos have also not done, which is focus on the offensive line to protect the quarterback.
I mean, to toot our own horn, the Chargers did the same thing. They invested heavy in O-line. They took 2 first-round picks and picked up 2 stud offensive linemen.
No one's talking about that. One of them got hurt.
Coach, no, Alex.
From a personnel standpoint, I'm right. Like 2 teams that invested heavy in O-line to keep their quarterback upright, and 2 didn't.
Now, look at what the Chargers did last year when they had like 3 different O-linemen get hurt. Their offensive line still was very good because they had massive depth there at the offensive line because they focused on drafting O-linemen.
Drafted another one this year.
And they drafted another guy this year. But the Broncos and the Raiders have both neglected, in some regard, their offensive line. And we're seeing how that plays out as it pertains to run game, pass pro, or a combination of the two. And the Broncos can afford to do that with an aging quarterback. And on the flip side of that, when you look at the Raiders drafted an injury-prone quarterback. it's fine if you do that, but you got to bolster the guys up front to make sure he doesn't get hurt. And then if he still doesn't do well, then at least you have protection in front of the new quarterback that you can then draft the following year. I'm sorry, just to me, it's a no-brainer.
And I listen. Now you're not giving an argument for me there.
I see that as a softball issue, right? I see that as like, of course you want to protect the most important position on your team, and guess what? Like Alex, if you're going to argue with me, then do start giving us your old lineman and see how Mahomes does. like, come on now. Like, no.
I mean,
no.
I'm not arguing with you. I will say I mean, the Chiefs made that a point after they lost to the Bucs in the Super Bowl when Mahomes ran 500 yards from sideline to sideline,
running for his life.
And I mean,
obviously, please don't hurt me.
But I will say at the same time, you know, it is going to be interesting to see with your Herberts and Burrows, and I mean, even Russ getting the extension he did. I mean, it seems that like Mahomes, obviously, and he said this as much in interviews, that he, you know, signed the contract he did, understanding he's leaving some money on the table to have a better team around him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be interesting to see if, like, you know, if what Burrow signs for, and then are like the Bengals going to be able to, you know, sign Chase and keep this other core around, or same with Herbert. You know, are they going to be able to sign Herbert and then sign Slater to an extension, and, you know, have both
Matt?
I mean, and
that
yeah,
so
Herbert.
That depends on Herbert.
Well, actually, like, you know, not to get too deep into the numbers, but I kind of like how they structured it, because by the time Slater's due for a contract extension, Allen, Williams, Max, and Bosa's contract will all be off the books.
Yeah.
So you're looking at almost $100 million, actually more than $100 million of money being off the books.
Right.
So that particular aspect will be helpful.
But you got to look at.
But then do you end up with an Aaron Rodgers situation where you have a quarterback who's really good, but then they basically have maxed out your quarterback's contract and cannot put a good enough team on the other side of the ball around him. What Mahomes did, and to his credit, he looked at what Brady was able to do, and I think Mahomes is clearly way smarter than his brother Jackson. But
hell yeah,
I had to throw that in there.
His brother just had the whole,
I mean,
the whole affidavit.
Just had to throw that shot in there.
and so I think when you look at what's happening with Patrick versus you know, what other quarterbacks have done, Patrick Mahomes, I believe, sees himself, given what he was able to do early in his career, as being able to be that guy, not just a guy, that guy.
The guy.
And in order to be that guy, he has to leave a little bit of money on the table, build out more money through endorsements in the back end of his career, which he's fine. And he can make his money elsewhere, but he knows that if he wants to be the guy to supplant Brady as the GOAT, he's got to continually stack Super Bowls. And in order to do that, he's got to have a better team around him.
I will. DZ beat me to it, but I was going to say, out of the QBs, I do think that Herbert is that type of guy that would take a team print, like not care that he's paid that much so that he could have a better team. Well, I think more than Burrow. I mean, just because that's just what he strikes me as. But
I mean, he's a Chargers fan growing up.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, they, like I said, they invested in him early.
Burrow, I could see Burrow wanting some stacks. But.
Yeah, I think he'll take a hometown discount. But I mean, we won't see until the numbers come out. But you know, I like that how they structured Jalen Hurts' contract, because they give him a lot of guaranteed money, but his cap number is very low for the first 5 years of the deal.
Yeah.
So he's not a cap burden at all for them, you know, going forward. So they can still load up, you know, their roster to how they see fit.
I agree. And I think you're going to start seeing more quarterbacks want to do that, because they want to be able to have their cap dollars converted into
you want to be
upfront money in order to then have the team. Yeah. Like, either way, you're getting paid. Who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Matter of fact, it's guaranteed. It's not even. It's more beneficial for them to have a guarantee rather than the salary number, because you get that in percentages. You get the guaranteed money up front.
Right. So moving over to the Broncos schedule, this is an interesting one as I'm looking at it. So we start off the season with the Raiders, then we go to the Commanders, Dolphins, Bears, and Jets. Now, I see that as a split schedule. I think that between the Raiders, the Commanders, the Dolphins, the Bears, and the Jets, we're going to be probably around 500. Yes, I'm not that Broncos fan. I'm not a guy that's saying we're going undefeated in the season. I think that's absolute crap. And then we go into the Chiefs, the Packers, the Chiefs again,
The Chiefs, baby.
bye week, and then the Bills.
Ooh,
And that is a rough stretch.
that is.
Like, that is a rough stretch. And what's really going to be a huge factor there is, one, does our defense take a step back? And two, is Sean Payton able to bring our offense up a notch? I can't speak to anything at this point, but what I can speak to is I still think our offensive line is trash. And
Back to this.
no,
You thought it was done? No.
no,
Really back in, baby.
You know who you are? I am.
yeah, and I mean, we have a right tackle who comes from a system that is not our head coach's style of system. We have an offensive center who is hot garbage, and that's being polite. The guy's a turnstile at best. He's basically a buffet king, and that's about it.
Damn.
Don't get me wrong, he seems like a really nice guy, but he's just not a good offensive center. And then our guards struggled last year with interior pressure. So the only guy that really did halfway decent was Quinn Miners, who pushed guys off the ball. And we have no one left from that interior guard position that was anywhere decent. And then on top of that, the guy that looked really good as our backup left tackle is with the Patriots. And our current starting left tackle is coming off an ACL injury, and we have no one else to back him up. We're done. Like, I'm sorry, we're done.
He said we're done.
Right.
Nay.
We're done.
I know, right? Call it time of death.
Yeah.
There's
Time
flat
of death.
line. There's flat line.
Clear. Get a defibrillator.
Yeah, like it's one of those things that really blows my mind, because it seems like such a glaring issue to me that I'm struggling as to why people that get paid a lot of money to coach football and to field a football team are not seeing it the same way, given the fact that I called this the last couple of years, and I've been right the last couple of years. So I have a better track record than they do, and I'm not getting paid.
Man, you got a hell of a point, because you said that murderer's row, even come on the bye week, you got to play Buffalo, and then Minnesota's not gonna give me game, and then Cleveland's not gonna give me game.
No, the Browns are legit.
They are. I agree.
They are legit.
I agree. I think I think the AFC North is going to be the toughest division in the conference this year. I think it is.
And then we go to the back end of the season.
Lamar.
Hold on, guys. We go to the back end of the season where we go Texans, Chargers, Lions, Patriot, Chargers, Raiders.
Yeah.
The Broncos are
Texans, at least.
screwed.
At least you got the Texans in there.
True.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't think they're going to be a sleeper either. I think they're going to be a tough out. With D'Amico Ryan's coaching them, they're going to be a tough out.
And yeah, you don't know with Stroud. That's the thing. I feel like, and maybe that's just with. It feels like there's more rookies overturning, but it doesn't seem like there's a team that, like last year, you knew there was probably 4 or 5 teams like, oh, like they're not going to do anything.
Right. You don't know
it
that
doesn't seem like there's that right now.
I agree. I agree.
No, because all of the teams that really screwed up last year, they all made wholesale changes, and they made intentional. They made intentional wholesale changes that, look, you're going to have about 60% of them that are going to work out, and then 40% of them won't. But that's 60% that you have to bank on winning.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the Jets are that dangerous team. The
Yeah,
Jets
very-
have done. The
They got a
Jets have
ready-made
done,
roster. They got a ready-made roster ready to go.
like they were good last year, and they were just missing a handful of pieces, and they went all in.
Mm-hmm.
They did what the Broncos wanted to do.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
Mm.
Exactly.
How about that?
So my whole point here is that, in my opinion, I think the Broncos are another 5 or 6 win team. And yeah, I'm willing to commit to something like that. I think the Broncos have made a lot of bad decisions this offseason. I think our draft was I think we did well in the draft to backfill some holes, but I think the problem is we filled the wrong holes.
That's usually a problem in many ways.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, hey guys, we need an inside linebacker. We need that. That's great. That's like, but dude, you have an old quarterback who's going to get hurt if you don't protect him. So what are you going to do about it? And they said, absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
And I think that's going to be what our problem is that we need to backfill that offensive line. We need to keep Russ upright, and we need to have him stop running for his life. And as good as Sean Payton is at developing a system and getting guys open, you cannot successfully run the ball unless you can push the defensive line of your opponent off the ball. And I just don't think we're at that point. So I believe we're about a 5 or 6 win team, maybe a 7-win team at best. And so, I just think that we're going to be bottom tier again, despite the fact that we have basically given away all of our picks.
Mm.
And that pains me to say out loud, because when you give away picks like that, you're typically wanting to be at a position where you're a position away. And the Broncos are nowhere close, in my opinion.
All fair.
And DZ, no. No. So as an example, we're changing defensive coordinators to a guy that has had a mixed background in terms of his success as a D coordinator. So that's one. Two, we have an offensive-minded head coach that is typically valued interior offensive line and interior defensive line, and we have not drafted to bolster those positional groups in our roster. So that's 2 major knocks right there. And third, we just simply need to do better as a team. We need to come forward with a vision, and I'm not seeing a coherent vision on the team right now because we don't even know what we want. Are we going to be a run-first team? Are we going to be a pass-first team? How do we want to build the roster? Because I'm a Broncos fan, and trust me, I've dug into our roster as deep as they get. It's an absolute just cluster that's on there right now. We need to know who we are and what our vision is going to be, and then we need to pivot accordingly. We're not there. So we're probably a 6 or 7 win team at best. And if we get to an 8-win team, I will say we exceeded our expectation. If we get to a 9-win team, I'll be ecstatic, but I just don't see it happening.
How many weeks do you think it will take Russ to throw more touchdown passes in bathrooms in his house?
Never.
Yeah.
I think it was like 16 weeks last year, and he's got 12 of them bad boys in there.
Well, actually, I will say this year, I think he'll get about halfway through the season, and he'll end up throwing more touchdowns. But I think that'll be because Sean Payton is a much better offensive head coach. But at the same time, he's going to look like trash because he has no one protecting him.
Yeah.
Like we're banking on.
Or he's going to get hurt.
Like it's you cannot bank on everything going perfectly. You have to plan like what the Chiefs and the Chargers have done to say we need backups to back up our starters. And the Broncos are just nowhere near that right now. You're going to get a few guys that will surprise you. I will be happy with a few dudes that I'm not giving credit to right now, and I'm willing to eat that. But I don't think that we're going to be that good of a team with who we have right now.
That's funny.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Oh, man.
Dude, I'm from Canada. We have like winter like 8 months of the year. I don't need a hug. I just need a freaking fire.
And a good offensive lineman.
Yeah, and good old lineman and D lineman. We're good.
There you go. All right, boys. I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
I think this was a great show, guys. If you have any questions for us, you can hit us up on Twitter. My handle's down below, so you can leave death threats there for everything I've said about the Broncos. And if you just like to tell me I'm an idiot, I'm also happy to hear that as well.
There it is.
Yeah,
Right there.
and for everyone else, you can leave them nothing but pleasant comments because they've been very kind and cordial to their team, and then done all sorts of wonderful things. Ladies and gentlemen, until next week, where the West Side is the best side, and you get to hear more of my rants and nonsense again.
Fully liquored up.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.